Hi everybody, it's me Gemma and this is a book recommendations video. I have had a rough couple of weeks. We had to unfortunately put one of our cats to sleep. Unfortunately he was unwell, so I've not really been in much of a mood to film or do anything, but it's going to be a new month and we're still all inside with no real end in sight, so I thought, why not just have a miscellaneous recommendations video? So some of these you'll have heard from me before, some of them you were like, Gemma, we know you tell us every single time, and some of them I've never mentioned before on my channel. So I wanted to start with something recent, and that is Feed by Mira Grant. Mira Grant is the pen name of Sean Maguire, and I know a lot of us on BookTube have read her Every Heart a Doorway series and also another couple of her books. This is a zombie book, and it's a zombie book with a twist. It's got really kind of as accurate as possible science. If you follow her on Twitter, you'll know that Seanan talks about how accurate she likes to have her virology. So I really enjoyed this. It's got a society that's quite just a step away from our own, and say maybe like 10-20 years in the future, but there was a zombie outbreak, and now sort of news and things like that mainly comes from the internet. Bloggers are a much bigger thing. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. It's really good. It's part of a trilogy. I've not read the other 2 books yet, but if you can stomach that kind of book at the moment, I highly recommend this one. And then I'm also going to recommend Beyond Black by Hilary Mantel. Now, Hilary Mantel had a new book out recently, so I did see quite a few people talk about that, but I've never seen anyone else ever mention this on BookTube. It's probably my favourite non-fantasy novel of all time. It's about a psychic called Alison, and it's about her life as she works as a sort of, not a TV psychic, but she sort of does the circuit, and she has her friend Colette, and they move into a house together, and there's a whole plot about Alison's spirit guide, about her past, about her relationship with her mother, about her childhood. And also Hilary Mantel never actually comes out and says, you know, either Alison is really psychic and it's all real, or if it's a product of her childhood trauma. You never really know. I personally always took it as that Alison really is psychic, but it's a really great book. This is I think my second copy of it. I do have a signed one kicking around somewhere. I love this book. I think the cover is also really cute, and Hilary Mantel does a great writing. When I read it, always sort of sympathise and also sort of empathise as well with Alison, and if you read it you'll sort of probably know why. It's a really good book and you should read it. Just 5 stars. Now I'm going to talk about The Bone Witch by Rin Chupeco. Now, a lot of us were on Twitter when there was some, you know, I won't call it drama, because it was needed and it was right. And an author called Mackenzie Lee basically was signing other authors' books and sending them out in the mail. And one of the authors whose book she signed was Rin Chupeco's. And people pointed out quite rightly that it's, one, not a place of any author to sign another author's book and send it out, and 2, really even more so when the author's an author of colour and things like that. So I did see a lot of people haul this book last month, and I think you're all in for a real treat because it's excellent. I've got the second one on my TBR for this month, and basically it's a girl called T who finds out that she is a bone witch or a necromancer, and while people need the necromancers for reasons that become apparent, they don't like them and they don't really want them around. And there's only one other bone witch that T knows of. There's only one more person she can learn from. I really enjoyed the world building in this, and I really like T. She's not a conventionally likeable heroine, and the flashbacks do sort of suggest that she later on is going to be a more of an antagonist, but I'm really interested to see what happens. I really love it. and I think that you will too. Now, a little bit of non-fiction, and it's From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Doughty. Now, Caitlin has the channel Ask a Mortician on YouTube. It's a great channel, I recommend it. And this is a series of essays that she has written about burial and death practices from around the world. Some of them you might have heard of. There's a good section on like the sky mummies and things like that, that it's all really good, and I think she writes with a really good sort of sympathetic ear to, you know, she doesn't make it outlandish or make it sound crazy, it's just what it is. And also it's a really great cover. It's not as much of a memoir as Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, but it really is just a good book about death and death practices. And the reason that I love books about that is because my degrees in anthropology, my specialism was in the anthropology of death and dying, and this was one of the first books I ever read. It's called The Buried Soul: How Humans Invented Death by Timothy Taylor. Not one of the books I read as a child, but one of the first books I read about death and dying. And as you can see by the yellowed spine, I have had this book a long time, and I think it's awesome. It really talks a lot about death practices and about sort of talking a bit about how some things carry between cultures and things like that. He also wrote a book called The Prehistory of Sex, which is a good one if you like non-fiction. One of my first memories of uni has been at my first anthropology tutorial. I was very shy, and my tutor asked me, you know, what books I'd read that had got me into anthropology, and I mentioned this one, and he said, oh, I love that book as well. And it turns out he was specialising in death anthropology as well, and that was how we got to know each other, and how I ended up having him as my lecturer and my thesis supervisor. So hi Arner Arnerson, wherever you are, I hope you're still good. I really enjoyed it. It really spoke to the sort of morbid part of me, and I think if you like Caitlin Doughty, you'll like this very much. I have had this book now for 16 years, and it's gone through literally every single house move I've ever done. So I'm going to talk about one of my favourite authors and a middle grade that he wrote, and this is The Book of Lost Things by John Connolly. And you know I like John Connolly. He writes my favourite thriller series, and this is his sort of standalone middle grade. And if you can see, the book cover is absolutely stunning, and on the inside as well, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it's embossed with the design as well. And it's about a boy called David. His mother has died, and he eventually, you know, has to go into a sort of fairy land. I won't spoil it. It's a really great book, and it's about a boy who loves to read as well, so that makes it really special. I don't know if you can buy this particular edition anymore. This is the first edition, and it's signed as well. Most of my John Connolly books are signed now, and oh, a little sunshine. To Gemma, wishing you peace and happiness always. So that was Saturday the 19th of January, and that must have been, oh gosh, 2000 and something? 2006. So I got this when I was still at uni. It's a beautiful book. If you like middle grade stories, if you enjoyed like Philip Pullman's Dark Materials and things like that, I think you'd really enjoy this. So if you haven't read it and you enjoy middle grade fairy tales, then now, just to pepper in one that I do always mention, and that is The Bone Dolls Twin by Lynn Flewelling. I talk about this every time I recommend books, and it's for such good reason. The Bone Dolls Twin is a fantasy trilogy set in Flewelling's world of Scala, and it's about a set of twins, a prince and a princess, and how their lives are affected by the actions of their uncle. So I'm not going to go into it anymore. I talk about it every time, but I thoroughly recommend this. Give it 5 stars, and if you find a copy of it, please do pick it up. It's excellent. Lynn Flewelling's world building is absolutely spot on, and there is a bit about magic and there is things like that, but there's also quite a lot of like politics and things like that. So I love it and I recommend it. And I thought I'd recommend this chunky girl because it was actually on ebook sale the past couple of days for £2.99, which is an absolute bargain for this. It's an absolutely stunning book, and it's The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is the first Samantha Shannon book that I read, by the way, and I picked it up on the recommendation of some female rec videos, and it's about a sort of cast of characters, mainly women, and there are dragons, there's a priory and an orange tree, funnily enough, and there is so much sort of world building and politics and romance. My favourite character is Ede. I love her, and a lot of the book is told from Ede's perspective. My favourite two would be Ede and Tani, who is the rider of this lovely dragon here. So if you get the chance to pick it up for cheap for £2.99, I highly recommend you do so. It'll keep you going for quite a while, and also I believe the paperback is now out as well. Another one that, if you've been watching my channel, you know, it's Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand, and I love this. It's about three girls who come together on an island that's a sort of genius loci, has a sort of mind of its own, and they are fighting off a monster that is literally an embodiment of the patriarchy. The three girls are so varied and so interesting and well-rounded, and there's good rep for most things in this book. There is, you know, trigger warnings for, you know, sort of implied sexual assault and things like that. And if anyone does want any trigger warnings for it, or if you think you might need any, then feel free to DM me or anything, and I will quite happily give you more detailed trigger warnings for this book, just in case you should need them. But I really enjoyed this, and I thoroughly recommend it. Probably my favourite new read of last year. Now, the next one I'm going to do is a really retro romance, and it's The Wolf and the Dove by Kathleen E. Woodwise. Now, this copy is, oh god, I don't even know how old this copy is, because do you know what? It was my grandmother's. I think this copy actually comes from 1974. Believe it or not, it's definitely an old one, and that will tell you some of the book. You know, it's one of those ones, it's a romance that was very of its time, shall we say, and there are some sort of problematic things in it. But basically it follows a sort of, you know, you've heard the plotline before. The girl, her name is Aislinn, and she is a Saxon, and her family castle is overtaken by the Normans, and she is forced into marriage with one of the Normans, and she gets involved with all the sort of shenanigans to do with that. And the hero, his name is, let's see, Wulfgar. What a name. Then Wulfgar, the Iron Wolf of Normandy, came to claim Darkenwald as his prize of war, and Aislinn faced a more terrible bondage still as she grew to love the enemy warrior who had destroyed her family, degraded her people, and despised her as a slave. And it's listed as a troubadour spectacular. Now, this one is purely for nostalgia value. I've read it so many times. My mum's read it, my aunt's read it, as I say, my nana read it, and I will always hold on to this copy for that reason. If you're looking for a bit more of an artifact, or you can take those kind of sort of romances, then, you know, give it a go. It's nostalgia. And then we have Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. And I would also put in the short story collection, Ladies of Grace Adieu, with this as well. Look how gorgeous this one is. I've had that copy of Ladies of Grace Adieu for about 15-20 years. This one is a newer copy because my other one got it got wet when something flooded, so I bought a new copy. Now, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell is set in England, and it is totally England centric. It's set in the UK, but it's an English book, if you know what I mean. And it's about the last sort of magicians in England, one of them being Mr. Norrell, who's like a fussy sort of guy. He's sort of hoarding all the magic books to himself. And then he eventually meets Jonathan Strange, who is more of a sort of natural magician. And together they sort of become involved in some politics. There's the Napoleonic War. There's, a whole fairy plot. It's a really great book. It is a chunky book. And I think at the time it was the longest book I'd ever actually read. And it's about 1,000 pages. The mythology in it is great. If you like the sort of English fairy mythology, you'll probably really love this. There's a character in it, the Raven King, which has always made me think of the Raven Boys, but in this John Asglask is English. And they sort of talk about Scotland as being sort of a bit of a wild place, but we knew that already. So again, this is a perfect time to pick something like this up because it'll take you a goddamn long time, but it's worth it. There's also a good adaptation, which is currently, I believe, on Amazon Prime. If you want to have a go at the story but can't be bothered with something this long, I do recommend also the adaptation. It is very good. Some more non-fiction, and this is The Greedy Queen by Annie Gray. Annie Gray is one of my favourite sort of TV personalities. She's a food historian. She's written this book and a new one just come out about Churchill's Kitchen, which I'm going to read. But Annie Gray wrote this one, and it's Eating with Victoria, and it's a biography of Queen Victoria through food and through the history of, like the kitchens and the palaces, her relationship with her children and how all of that, came about through what she was eating at the time, and also about like her connection to India and things like that. I highly recommend it if you enjoy food history. Annie Gray has a really good sort of tone, really pacey, and she comes up with a lot of things you don't necessarily know without being too academic to be enjoyable. So I thoroughly recommend this one. Look at the lovely end papers with all the Victorian foods on it. In this case, many jellies. The Victorians were really into jelly. Okay, so another Mary Gran, and that is Into the Drowning Deep, and this one is about scary mermaids. Now, in this one, a ship set off to the Mariana Trench looking for mermaids, and they went missing. There was some found footage that suggested mermaids were real, and there's now a new expedition going to look for old expedition and to sort of find out if there are mermaids or not. But in this instance, the mermaids are scary and they want to eat you. So it's a horror, but it's also got good autism rep, it's got good lesbian rep. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Give it a go, and hopefully if we buy enough copies of it, eventually we'll get a sequel. I hope, because I think Sean McGuire was on Twitter talking about it, and that's what she said pretty much. The publisher hadn't asked for the new one because hadn't enough copies, and I was like, what? Tragedy. So then, bit of sci-fi, we've got Defy the Stars by Claudia Gray. This was actually recommended on Read with Cindy's channel. I've got both of the sequels waiting in my TBR pile, and it is about Noemi and Abel, and they are on the opposite sides of a war. Pardon me. But they become sort of entwined together. They have to go on a quest, a mission, and it's about their relationship as that moves forward, and also the sort of politics that's going on in the universe at the time. And there's like a disease going on, and things like that. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to the next ones. I'm trying not to make my TBR too huge for me, because I know that I'm really bad at TBRs, but I'm going to try. So then, last of all, another Seanan McGuire. You can tell she's been a real favourite for me this year, and that is Middle Game. Middle Game is, at the moment, a standalone, but I believe there is talk of a sequel. And it is about a set of twins called Roger and Dodger. Roger and Dodger were split at birth, and this book is about them reconnecting and about their powers and about the person who created them and why he created them. Not for good reasons. So Loads of people in the book community have said that this is an amazing book. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. And again, this was also on sale quite recently on ebook format, so I also recommend it. So that is roughly about 15 books that I've not really talked about a lot on my channel, but I do highly recommend. If you have any recommendations to give me or recommendation videos that you think I should watch, then as always, link them down below in the comments or send me a DM, follow me on Twitter, all that good stuff. And I will see you later. Bye.